I never thought I'd find myself in this situation, yet here I am, sitting in front of my laptop feeling like a train wreck. My name is Mark and I've been married to Jenna for 5 years. We met in college and it felt like we had the perfect relationship. At least that's what I believed until the cracks started to show. It started with the little things, her asking for space, which in hindsight was the first red flag. It was a few months back when Jenna first mentioned it. She said she needed some time to herself, that she felt overwhelmed with everything, work, family, and even our marriage. At first, I thought it was just a phase. I mean, relationships have ups and downs, right? So I gave her some space, hoping that things would settle down. I didn't want to push her, but the longer it went on, the more I felt like I was losing her. The way she acted changed, too. She was more distant, her affectionate touches had turned into brief pats on my shoulder. When I'd ask her how her day was, she would give vague answers, like she was withholding something. I tried to spark conversations, but she just brushed them off, saying she was too tired or busy. It made me feel like I was walking on eggshells around her, and that was new to me. Things took a turn one Saturday when I decided to surprise her. I came home early from work with her favorite takeout, ready to have a heart-to-heart. Instead, I found her phone lying on the kitchen counter. For a moment, I considered leaving it alone, respecting her privacy. But a nagging curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up, my heart racing, and the screen flashed with a notification from a messaging app I didn't recognize. My gut twisted as I opened the app. There it was, a conversation filled with flirty messages, emojis, and intimate plans. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The name attached to those messages was Chris. I didn't know a Chris. Who the hell was Chris? My mind raced as I read through the messages, each word cutting deeper than the last. They had plans to meet, and it was all happening while I was out busting my ass at work. I put the phone down, trying to catch my breath, but it was like the world spun off its axis. I felt sick, angry, and utterly betrayed. How could she do this to me? I thought about all the times she had brushed me off, her excuses, and that damned space she needed. It all started to click into place, and I could feel the rage bubbling up inside me. When Jenna walked in a few minutes later, I had made up my mind. I couldn't hold back any longer. "Who is Chris?" I asked, my voice steady but filled with tension. Her expression turned from surprise to panic. In that moment, I knew she was caught. She tried to play it off, saying it was just a coworker, that I was overreacting, but I wasn't buying it. I told her everything I had seen, the messages, the plans. Her face shifted as she scrambled for excuses. "It's not what you think, we were just flirting. It didn't mean anything," she stammered, but it felt like a feeble attempt to save face. I could feel my anger boiling over, but I tried to stay calm. I wanted her to own up to it, to admit what was really happening instead of deflecting. Her lies felt like daggers, and I was done playing along. As she tried to justify her actions, I realized that the woman I thought I knew was slipping right through my fingers. The confrontation was a whirlwind of accusations, tears, and empty promises. I felt like I was losing a battle I didn't even want to fight. I could see it in her eyes. She was more afraid of getting caught than feeling guilty. In that moment of chaos, the emotional impact hit me like a tidal wave. I felt betrayed, angry, and heartbroken all at once. And just like that, everything began to change. I had to decide how to move forward in this mess. What did I want? What was next for us? I felt a whirlwind of emotions and knew I had to take time to think. The path ahead was murky, but I wasn't going to let her lies dictate my next steps. I deserved better, and it was time for me to find out what that meant. The days that followed our confrontation blurred into a haze of anger, pain, and disbelief. Jenna tried to talk to me, insisting that the messages with Chris were meaningless. "I was just looking for someone to vent to," she said. "You weren't listening, Mark. I felt alone." But the more she spoke, the more I realized that she was trying to manipulate the narrative. I had been there for her, but she'd chosen to confide in another man instead. I spent hours replaying our relationship in my mind, searching for signs I had missed. Looking back, there had been plenty of them. The late nights at work that turned into happy hours, the sudden need for more time with friends, and all those excuses that felt flimsy at best. I couldn't believe how blind I had been. It was like someone had taken the blinders off, and I was finally seeing the truth for what it was. One night, I reached out to my best friend, Tom. He had known Jenna and me since the beginning. I needed someone to talk to, someone who wouldn't sugarcoat things. I met him at a bar, and over a couple of drinks I poured my heart out. "I just feel shattered, man. I thought we were happy, and now this," I said, my voice cracking. Tom listened intently, nodding along. "You deserve to be with someone who values you, Mark. If she's willing to cheat, that says a lot about how she feels about you. You shouldn't have to beg for love or respect." His words resonated deeply, stirring something within me. As the weeks passed, I contemplated my next moves. I remembered Jenna's defense, how she claimed she was just trying to find herself in the midst of chaos. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the chaos was partially her doing. I couldn't be the only one carrying the emotional weight in our relationship. One evening, after a particularly tense exchange with Jenna, I sat down to write. I poured my thoughts into a document, detailing everything I was feeling: the anger, the betrayal, and the worries about our future. It felt cathartic to put it all down on paper. I also began to map out a plan for my life without her. I was still deeply hurt, but I didn't want to feel paralyzed by this betrayal. Days turned into weeks, and Jenna continued to insist that she wanted to make things work. She even suggested couples therapy, but I wasn't convinced. My trust for her was shattered. Could I really sit in a room and pour out my feelings to someone who had deceived me? After much deliberation, I decided to confront Jenna again, not to rehash the past, but to lay out what I needed moving forward. I wanted to be clear about my feelings and my expectations. So one night I sat her down again. "Look, Jenna," I said, my voice steady. "I've been thinking a lot. I don't know if I can stay in this marriage if you're not fully committed to making it right." She looked taken aback. "What do you mean?" she asked, her eyes wide. "I mean, we can't just sweep this under the rug. You need to understand the gravity of what you've done. If you want to save this, it's going to take a lot more than just words. It's going to take honesty, trust, and real work. Otherwise, I don't see a future for us." Jenna was silent for a moment. I could see the wheels turning in her mind. "I can change, Mark. I swear. I don't want to lose you," she pleaded, but guilt swept over me. Did she mean it? Or was she just scared of being alone? I spent sleepless nights weighing my options. The thought of staying with someone who had betrayed me felt suffocating, yet the prospect of starting over was terrifying. I reflected on my life without her, envisioning a fresh start, but the memories of our happy moments haunted me. The emotional impact of that affair was a heavy burden. I felt like I was on a roller coaster of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion, hope, and finally, a sense of impending clarity. I began to realize that my happiness shouldn't depend on someone who didn't value me. It was during this time of reflection that I decided to take a more proactive approach. I reached out to a couple of divorce attorneys. I wanted to know what my options were, what the process looked like. No, I wasn't ready to file yet, but having that information gave me a sense of control over the situation. As I gathered information and processed my feelings, I felt a shift inside me. I was starting to understand that I deserved better than what Jenna had to offer. My heart ached at the thought of leaving, but the thought of staying in a marriage filled with deceit was even worse. I was beginning to accept that I had to prioritize my own well-being. I didn't want to be the victim of her choices anymore. The days turned into a countdown to a decision I knew I had to make for my own sake. I felt the strength building within me, and I was ready to take the next step. With every passing day, the weight of Jenna's betrayal became both a burden and a catalyst for change in my life. It wasn't just her infidelity that haunted me. It was the feeling of losing myself in the process. The Mark who once laughed easily and filled our home with warmth was fading away. I was tired of being a shadow in my own life. After those late-night discussions with Tom and my research into divorce options, I decided to take a stand. It was time to have a serious conversation with Jenna about where we stood and where I stood. I needed to know if she was genuinely willing to put in the effort to repair the damage she had caused, or if this was just another feeble attempt to keep me around while she figured things out. One Thursday evening, I sat her down once again at our dining table, the atmosphere thick with tension. Jenna entered the room with that familiar defensive posture, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. I could see she was anxious, but I was determined not to let her sidestep the conversation this time. "Jenna," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "I feel like we're at a turning point here. I'm struggling to see how we can move forward after everything that's happened. I need honesty from you. Are you really committed to fixing this, or are you just trying to avoid being alone?" Her face shifted from uncertainty to indignation. "I told you I want to fix things," she shot back. "You don't believe me." "Honestly." "No, I don't," I replied, feeling a surge of anger. "You said you needed space because you felt overwhelmed. That should have been a red flag for me, and here we are. I can't keep holding on to hope when all I see are your empty promises." Jenna opened her mouth to protest, but I cut her off. "Let's talk about Chris. What was it about him that made you feel like you could confide in him instead of me? Was it the excitement, the attention, because you couldn't find any of that in our marriage?" Tears started to well up in her eyes, and for a moment I thought she might actually get real with me, but then she shook her head. "You don't understand. It was just harmless flirting, Mark. I never meant for it to go that far. You just pushed me away." "Pushed you away?" I echoed, incredulous. "How about I wasn't even given the chance to understand? You were the one who needed space. You don't get to have it both ways." Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time I saw a flicker of guilt cross her face. "I know I messed up, but I'm trying to change." "You say that, but what does change mean to you?" I pressed. "Are you willing to cut ties with him? Are you willing to be transparent about your phone and your social media? Because if you're not, how can I trust that this isn't going to happen again?" I was laying everything bare, and deep down I knew this conversation was crucial. The truth was, I wanted to see if she would fight for us or if she would give up like she had when she turned to Chris. Jenna glanced down, biting her lip. "I didn't want to tell you about him because I was afraid of how you'd react. I let it get out of hand. I'm sorry." Apology felt half-hearted, and I was tired of hearing it. Words were cheap, especially when they came from someone who had betrayed my trust so casually. "You need to understand something, Jenna. Trust is earned, not given freely. You've shattered mine. It's not going to get fixed overnight. If you want to make this work, you have to show me that you're committed." The tension crackled in the air as Jenna looked at me, her face a mixture of annoyance and despair. "What do you want me to do?" "I'm trying." I took a deep breath, feeling both weary and resolute. "I want you to be willing to make sacrifices. I want to see that you're serious about us. I want you to find a therapist for yourself and for us. We both need to understand where we went wrong and how we can fix it. If you're not willing to do that, then I don't see how we can continue." I could see the gears turning in her head, and though she didn't say anything immediately, I could tell she was processing my demands. What I really wanted was for her to feel the weight of her actions, to understand that this wasn't going to be easy for either of us. Finally, she nodded slowly, although I could see she was still processing. "Okay, I'll do it. I'll find a therapist and we can figure this out together." I didn't feel the relief I wanted to feel. I was still cautious, still guarded. "You say that, but words mean nothing right now. Follow through with action. I'll be watching." The conversation ended with a heavy silence hanging between us. Jenna retreated to the living room, and I stayed at the table, feeling like I had just climbed a mountain only to find another one waiting for me. In the days that followed, I tried to keep my distance emotionally, giving her space to reflect while also focusing on myself. I started to prioritize my own mental health, making appointments with a therapist of my own. I wanted to work through my feelings of betrayal, anger, and confusion. It was imperative for me to be clear-headed as I navigated this tumultuous time. Jenna did start seeing a therapist, and while part of me wanted to feel hope, the skepticism lingered. I needed to see genuine change, not just a quick fix for the mess she had created. I often caught myself watching her closely, assessing every move, every word, and each interaction. It was exhausting, but I had to know if she was truly committed to us, or if this was just another round of temporary apologies. As I sought therapy for myself, I began to understand my own feelings better. I realized I was worth fighting for, even if I was still stuck in this messy situation. I had to acknowledge my own needs, my own pain, and my own value. And as hard as it was to admit, I knew I had to prepare for the reality that leaving might be the best option for both of us if she didn't step up. The emotional roller coaster continued. but I was getting stronger. I was becoming more aware of what I deserved and learning how to stand up for myself. I knew I was at a crossroads, one way leading to potential reconciliation and the other leading to independence and healing. But deep down, I knew I couldn't walk down that road without clarity. As the weeks dragged on, I felt the tension between Jenna and me simmering beneath the surface. She was attending therapy regularly, but I couldn't shake the feeling that things were still far from fixed. Each day, I tried to observe her actions, looking for signs that she was genuinely invested in repairing our relationship. But with every flicker of hope, I was met with a new wave of doubt. Jenna seemed more engaged in our conversations, asking about my day and attempting to show affection, but it often felt forced. It was as if she was reading from a script, trying to hit all the right notes without really understanding the melody. When I caught her on her phone, part of me wondered if she was talking to Chris again, despite her assurances that she had cut off contact. The paranoia was exhausting, and I hated that it was creeping its way back into my life. One evening, I returned home after an exhausting day at work, ready to unwind with a beer and some quiet time. But as soon as I walked through the door, I could sense an unusual energy in the air. Jenna was unusually quiet, sitting on the couch with her phone in hand, her face tight with concentration. "Hey, everything okay?" I asked, trying to gauge her mood. She looked up, startled, and quickly put her phone down. "Yeah, just scrolling through social media," she replied a bit too quickly. I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "You seem off. Are you sure that's all you're doing?" She forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine, really, just tired from the day." I could feel my gut tight. "You don't have to pretend with me, Jenna. If something bothering you, let's talk about it." She hesitated, biting her lip. "It's just work has been stressful and I've been thinking a lot about us," she admitted. "Thinking how?" I probed, feeling a mix of fear and curiosity. She sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I don't want to lose you, Mark. I want to make this work, but sometimes I feel like I don't know how." It felt like a vague attempt to deflect, and I wasn't in the mood to play games. I stepped closer, trying to maintain eye contact. "What's really going on?" "If you're still talking to Chris, I need to know," I said firmly. Her expression shifted from uncertainty to irritation. "I told you I cut things off. Why can't you just trust me?" I clenched my fists, feeling the anger bubbling up again. "You've given me no reason to trust you, Jenna. You broke my heart. I'm trying to navigate this mess, but I need you to be honest with me." The atmosphere turned heavy as she crossed her arms defensively, her walls going up again. "I'm trying. You keep bringing up Chris and it's not helping. I want to focus on us, not him." "If you want to focus on us, then we need to be transparent," I argued. "I can't move forward if I feel like I'm constantly looking over my shoulder." She let out a frustrated sigh, running her fingers through her hair. "Fine. You want to see my phone? I'll show you." She grabbed her phone from the table and tossed it to me, her frustration palpable. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of what I would find. But a part of me needed to know, needed to see if she was still in contact with Chris. I unlocked her phone and scrolled through her messages. My heart raced as I searched for any sign of infidelity, but as I sifted through her conversations, I found nothing. No messages to Chris, no flirty exchanges, just mundane chats with friends and family. It felt like a weight had lifted, but at the same time, the emptiness of her phone struck me. Was it enough to rebuild what we had? "See, I'm not lying," she said, crossing her arms defensively. "You're acting like I'm the devil here. I'm trying to change. I'm doing everything I can to make this work." I handed her the phone back, feeling a mix of relief and frustration. "I want to believe you, Jenna, but this is going to take time. You can't just expect me to forget what happened because you say you're sorry. I need to see real change." "I know that," she replied, her voice softer now. "I want to show you I can be the wife you deserve, but you need to give me a chance, Mark. I don't want to fight anymore." The surrender in her tone caught me off guard. I had grown accustomed to the tension and the bickering, but maybe it was time to find common ground. "I'm willing to try," I said cautiously, "but we need to establish some ground rules. Full transparency, open communication, and no secrets. Can we agree on that?" She nodded, her eyes pleading. "Yes, absolutely. I'll do whatever it takes." That night we settled into a tentative truce. The fighting had ebbed, replaced for the moment by a fragile understanding. But I was still haunted by the fear that this wouldn't last. The memory of her betrayal loomed large, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking a tightrope, one misstep away from falling into the abyss of heartbreak again. With each passing day, I tried to be more communicative about my feelings. Jenna was making an effort too, showing more affection and trying to engage in deeper conversations, but it felt like we were just skimming the surface. I wanted us to dive deeper, to confront the real issues that had led us to this point. I began to think about our future, what it would look like if we actually managed to work through this. I wanted to envision a life filled with trust, honesty, and respect, but I also couldn't ignore the doubts gnawing at me. Would this fragile peace last, or were we just delaying the inevitable? Tom had been a great support throughout this ordeal. He often reminded me to focus on my own well-being, to not lose sight of myself in the chaos. I took his advice to heart, making time for my own interests and hobbies. I dove back into my routines, finding solace in the gym and reconnecting with friends I had neglected during the tumultuous time with Jenna. But the more I focused on myself, the more I realized I needed to be honest with both Jenna and myself. I wasn't sure if I could fully forgive her, and I needed to confront those feelings before I decided if I was ready to commit to rebuilding our relationship. I found myself at a crossroads, teetering between hope and despair. I was determined to find clarity, to know what I wanted for my future. But deep down, I wondered if it was possible to rebuild trust after it had been so cruelly shattered. And with that thought, I prepared myself for the next step, whatever that may entail. As the dust settled from our recent conversations, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The fragility of our situation was both suffocating and strangely liberating. I had set some boundaries with Jenna, and while she seemed to be making an effort, I couldn't shake the feeling that the foundation of our relationship was still shaky at best. One night after a long day at work, I returned home to an unexpected surprise. The lights in the living room were dimmed, and a candle flickered softly on the table. Jenna stood there, a nervous smile on her face, holding a plate of pasta, my favorite. "I wanted to do something special," she said, her eyes shimmering with hope. "I know things have been tough, but I want to show you how much I care." I appreciated the gesture, but it felt like a band-aid on a wound that needed stitches. Her efforts were commendable, but I wondered if she truly understood the depth of the damage that had been done. As we sat down to eat, the air was thick with unspoken words and cautious optimism. "Thanks for this," I said, trying to appreciate the moment, but my mind was racing. "But we need to talk about where we are again." She nodded, her smile faltering slightly. "I was hoping we could just enjoy tonight, but I understand. What do you need to say?" I took a deep breath. "I want to make this work, but it feels like we're still dancing around the real issues. I need to know you're committed to transparency, not just in words but in actions. It's been hard for me to trust you since everything happened with Chris." "I get that," she replied, her voice earnest. "I know. I messed up and I'm doing everything I can to change. I'm not talking to him anymore, I promise. I want you to feel secure in our relationship." I looked into her eyes, searching for sincerity. "But what does that mean? How can I trust that you won't just go back to old habits? I need specifics. What are you doing to make sure that this doesn't happen again?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "I've been going through my social media, and I've deleted any contacts that might cause jealousy. I'm trying to focus on us, on what we can build together. I'm even considering changing jobs if it means being away from that environment." Her determination to change struck a chord, but I was still apprehensive. "That's a big step, but you need to understand it's not just about physical changes, it's emotional too. We need to communicate better. I want us to be more open about our feelings." "I'm working on that," she said softly. "I swear I'll do better, you deserve that." After dinner, we sat together on the couch, the atmosphere lighter, yet still heavy with the weight of our unresolved issues. I turned on a show we used to watch together, but my mind was elsewhere. I couldn't help thinking about what life would look like if we continued down this path. Over the next few days, I tried to engage more with Jenna, supporting her attempts to mend our relationship. We made plans to go out, try to have fun together, and for a brief moment I felt the warmth of our connection returning. But there were still nights when I'd lie awake, tossing and turning, the fear of fully opening up gnawing at me. Then came the day I'd been dreading. I was at work when I received a text from Tom. "Hey, saw Jenna at a bar with a guy, just wanted to give you a heads up." My stomach dropped. This was it, the moment I had feared. I spent the rest of my workday distracted, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Had she gone back to Chris? Was this another lie? I felt the familiar surge of anger bubbling beneath the surface. How could she do this again? When I got home, Jenna was already there, sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, her demeanor relaxed. I didn't waste any time. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold. Her expression shifted. "About what?" "Tom saw you at a bar with another guy." Her face paled and I could see the panic rise in her eyes. "It wasn't like that, I swear. It was just a work thing. We were celebrating a project launch." "Celebrating?" I echoed, incredulous. "Celebrating with drinks and flirty conversations. You can't be serious." "It wasn't flirty, I swear. We were just talking," she insisted, her voice rising in desperation. I took a step closer, my heart pounding. "I need you to be honest with me, Jenna. Do you expect me to believe that you're making an effort to fix our marriage while you're out with another man?" Tears brimmed in her eyes. "You're twisting this. I was trying to have a life outside of this mess. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I thought it was okay to have friends." "Friends?" I spat. "After everything that's happened, you think it's okay to have drinks with a guy without telling me? It feels like you're not even trying to be transparent." "I can't keep doing this, Jenna. This is not what I signed up for." Her head hung low, and for a moment I thought she might finally realize the gravity of her actions, but she quickly shot back. "I can't be under constant surveillance. You can't expect me to change everything overnight just because of one mistake." "One mistake?" I echoed, disbelief flooding my voice. "This isn't just one mistake. This is a pattern, and I don't know how many more times I can take this." Jenna broke down, sobs escaping from her lips. "I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure this out. I don't want to lose you." I was torn. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to reassure her that it would be okay, but another part of me was furious. In that moment, I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, the abyss waiting below. "Jenna, I need time to think," I finally said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I can't do this right now. I need to clear my head." I turned away, leaving her sobbing on the couch as I stepped out onto the balcony, the cool night air hitting me like a slap in the face. As I looked out at the city lights, I realized I was at a crucial turning point. I needed to decide whether I was going to continue fighting for something that felt increasingly out of reach, or whether it was time to put myself first and walk away. The truth was, I loved her, but love alone couldn't heal the wounds she had inflicted. I felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me, and I knew I had to confront the reality of our situation. I had to think about my happiness and whether there was still a path forward for us. And as I stood there, breathing in the crisp air, I understood that the decision ahead would change everything. It was time to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I spent the night on the balcony, wrestling with my thoughts and emotions. I felt lost, but I also knew I had reached a tipping point. After everything that had happened, the infidelity, the lies, the broken trust, I needed to make a decision that would shape my future. The next morning, I woke up feeling drained. I hadn't slept much, but I felt an unexpected clarity. I realized that I couldn't keep hanging onto a relationship that seemed to ebb and flow with uncertainty. I loved Jenna, but love wasn't enough to heal the gaping wounds in our marriage. After a long shower, I walked into the kitchen to find Jenna sitting at the table, her eyes red from crying. She looked up as I entered, her regret evident on her face. "I'm sorry for what happened last night," she said, her voice soft and broken. "I didn't mean to hurt you, I really didn't." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. "Jenna, I need to talk to you about where we go from here," I said, keeping my voice steady. She nodded, apprehensive. "Okay, I'm listening." Last night shook me. I realized that I can't keep pretending that everything is fine. "The trust is gone, and I don't know if it can be rebuilt," I said, watching her response carefully. Her face fell, a flicker of fear in her eyes. "Mark, please. I want to make this work. I can do better." It's not just about wanting to do better, it's about demonstrating that commitment every day, I replied, my tone firm but compassionate. But I also have to think about my own well-being. I can't be in a relationship where I'm constantly questioning your loyalty. Tears pooled in her eyes again and she shook her head, pleading. Please don't say that. I love you, Mark. I want us to work. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of my decision pressing down on me. Love isn't enough anymore. You've broken my trust too many times. I can't stay here and live in fear of losing you to someone else again. I need to put myself first. Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment I thought she might break down again. Are you really considering leaving after everything we've been through? She asked, her voice trembling. Yes, I replied, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. I think it's best for both of us. You need to find yourself away from the pressures of our relationship, and I need to find my own happiness without the constant pain of your betrayal. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched as Jenna processed my words, her face a mixture of despair and disbelief. Part of me felt guilty for hurting her, but I knew it was necessary for my own healing journey. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I never wanted it to come to this. I thought we could work through it. I thought I could change. You still can, I said softly, trying to ease the blow. But it just can't be with me right now. I hope you can find the path you need to take. I really do. Jenna nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. I wish things had been different, she choked out. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you until now. I took a step back, my heart aching for the memories we shared, but I knew this was what I needed. I'll always care about you, Jenna, but I have to move on for my own sake. With that, I turned and walked out of the kitchen, feeling the weight of finality in every step. The next few weeks were agonizing but liberating. I moved my things out of the apartment we had shared and into a small temporary place. It felt surreal to think I was starting over, but I was finally prioritizing my own happiness. I took time to reflect on my feelings, diving into self-care, reconnecting with friends, and rediscovering the things I loved before everything got so complicated. As I navigated this new chapter, I found solace in therapy. I learned to process my emotions, to understand that healing takes time, and that it was okay to be sad. I surrounded myself with supportive people who encouraged me to embrace this new beginning. Months passed, and I began to feel lighter. I started to rediscover the joy of life without the shadow of betrayal looming over me. There were still hard days, moments when memories would hit me like a wave, but I learned to ride those waves, letting them wash over me instead of drowning in them. One evening, as I sat on my balcony sipping a drink, I reflected on what I had learned through this difficult experience. I realized the importance of trust in relationships and that genuine love requires honesty, transparency, and respect from both partners. I learned that it's okay to prioritize your own needs and that sometimes walking away is the healthiest choice for both people involved. And as I embraced this new chapter, I felt a sense of freedom and hope. I was ready to open my heart again, perhaps not right away, but someday. I knew that love was still out there and I was determined to find it, this time, with the wisdom gained from my past experiences. Life had its ups and downs, but I was learning to navigate it on my own terms. And as I looked toward the horizon, I felt a sense of excitement for the future, ready to embrace whatever came next.